So based on your rotations that your students participated in today, I want to ask you a few questions. How many different rotations do you set up for your students?
Well, it's based on class size, number of students in my classroom. Right now I have 25 students, so I'm able to have 4 groups that go through the 4 rotations.
Could you please list the rotations that your students are doing this week while you're either leading a guided reading or a guided writing group?
Yes, the first rotation is with me. One of the rotations is a guided writing or a guided reading group. That's when I have a small group back here working on specific skills that they need at that time. The next rotation is what I call an independent rotation, and that's where they practice the skill that I just taught them on their own at their seat. The third one this week is a poetry rotation. One of our standards this year is interpreting poetry and use of word choice in poetry. So exposure to poetry is something I really want to focus on this week with them. And the final one is a main idea center. We are working on finding the main idea in reading. So I have flashcards that have a short passage, and the students need to pick which is the main idea from a multiple choice.
Great. And how do you decide which activity students will participate in?
All students participate in all rotations. They may not get to all 4 in one day. I typically, since my guided writing groups are longer now in 3rd grade, I typically do 2 rotations one day to the next, but all kids will get exposure to each of the 4 rotations.
Great. And do you keep some rotations for longer than 1 week, or each rotation that you pick is 1 week long?
Typically, the teacher rotation and the independent one stays that all the time. The kids always have those 2 rotations, and then the other 2 I switch based on curriculum, based on needs, stuff like that.
And when your students rotate, do they rotate in the same group that they're in with a guided group with you, and they just move through those rotations?
Yes, they do.
Together?
Yep. So if you're in the blue writing group, you rotate with the blue writing group throughout all 4 rotations. However, I reassess writing several times a year, and based on writing assessments, I do change the groups.
And do their reading groups have that flexibility as well, so students may have the opportunity to switch reading groups throughout the year as well?
Absolutely.
And what advice could you give to other teachers as they start using guided reading or guided writing groups and rotations?
I would say to try to be as thoughtful as you can about your rotations. Don't do something just because it looks easy for you to do. Try to find something that's engaging, something that ties into your curriculum in some aspect. Just don't do it because it looks fun. And that way you can get they can work on their skills as much as possible during those rotations.
And what do you do to help with classroom management while you're busy doing a guided group and everybody else is working independently? What systems have you put into place to help with that?
Well, it takes time. You definitely have to practice in the beginning. You can't just say go to rotation. So I start very small. I start with showing them what a rotation looks like, and we have a mock rotation. We go through the steps. I also time them. So the rotations are timed and the transition is timed. So then the students know I have to be to my next rotation in 1 minute. Before every writing or reading block, I always go over all the rotations. I write down anything that I think they may need to be successful at that rotation. And then if they have a question, they are to refer to someone in their group and not to me. And then during transition time, if they need me, that would be a perfect time to come and ask me a quick question.